Hello viewers and welcome to another commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to bring you another one of the featured matches from Sam Mann's Black Crusade, his online Conquest LCG competitive league. At the bottom of our screen in today's video we have user Intolerance, and on the top, playing as Packmaster Kith, we have voidreturn. At the bottom of our screen, we've got Old Zogwort, someone we kind of seldom see, and both of our players are at the moment taking a look at their opening hands. Looks like Zogwort is starting off with his signature attachment. He's got a couple of favorable economy cards in the form of a Rogue Trader, the Sanctioned Psyker. He's got two Snakebite Thugs, which is going to be absolutely fantastic, and if we take a look at our first three planets, it's potentially going to be a victory condition on planet 3 thanks to blue tech icons. So if Zogwort decides to go hyper aggressive, those Snakebite Thugs could be just integral in his being able to do so. The Weird Boy Stick could be a few shields, and then a Rock Bombardment in dealing out damage after a unit's attack. That could be fantastic in killing off of some of Packmaster Kith's Chimera tokens, but both of our players are still deciding whether or not they want to keep their opening hands. Kith has got a copy of the Clavex War Leader, kind of the scourge, I guess you could say, of this game. You can drop that into play, kill a unit, plus it ambushes. A copy of Archon's Palace is going to be absolutely just a nightmare for our Zogwort player in being some early game economic denial, and then just another couple of economy units for Kith, Incubus Warrior, Slith Mercenary, and then a Warlock Destructor for her. So it's going to be Intolerance's action. Note, Intolerance does not possess our initiative token, and I suppose what shall we see? We've got a Rogue Trader sitting at planet number 5 for Kith. Planet number 1 is going to be Planum, something normally fantastic to see as the first planet when you've got initiative, because if you win a battle at this planet, you'll be able to move whatever unit ends up surviving that battle wherever you'd like. You can pretty safely dump your most powerful unit at planet number 1 and reposition it to, say, planet number 2 or whatever happens to be contributing to your victory condition. And planet number 3 here is going to be Yavharn, the planet which allows both players to take a unit from their hand, put it directly into play in their HQ. Planet number 4 is going to be that route, a Warlord planet Farron, and I suppose if our players for some reason allow planet number 1 to disappear into the void, we could also see a very early victory condition through red icons as well. So it's looking like this is indeed going to be a pretty quick game, and another couple economy units here. Sanctioned Psyker opposite that Rogue Trader at planet number 5. That's potentially going to deny Kith a card, and then that Slith Mercenary sitting at planet number 2 is not only going to be a very combat relevant planet, but Aatrox Prime is always a bit of a nasty effect that you kind of want to avoid if you've got a bunch of fragile tokens. So Zogwort as a warlord has the reaction where whenever he's commit to a planet or declared as an attacker, either time either of those effects occur, you generate a 1/1 Snotlings token. So each of those tokens could potentially kill off Chimera, and that could stand to work pretty favorably for Zogwort, just in kind of supplementing some of his beefier units, like these Snakebite Thugs, with those tokens that are still more than able to kill off those Chimera. But Rock Bombardment can certainly help if the, just Chimera Swarm ever reaches critical mass. And I suppose it's all just going to kind of remain to be seen, but what is going to be next for our players? Looks like we've got a copy of Rogue Trader being played out by Intolerance, but what exactly planet is he going to throw this out to? Definitely worth noting is that at this point during the Octagon League, both of these players are at 3 wins and 1 loss apiece, so they're both very competent, rather formidable individuals, and this copy of Rogue Trader is sitting here at kind of an undesirable planet. Normally Yavharn isn't something you see activated, so it's probably not going to be Kith's #1 destination to arrive to, so it's a much more safe location to dump a rogue trader than something like Theron. Planum is going to be a great target because, like I said, you can do that unit shifting effect, but Theron is going to be a fantastic destination for really either of these warlords, just because you're going to want to be able to route whatever kind of combat units your opponent plays early on if you decide to let them win the first planets. But Kith has got that Archon's Palace in play. It's going to be just early card or resource denial. Generally, Orc players struggle in regard to command, and if Kith is going to be able to shut off command at will, then that could just make things extraordinarily difficult indeed for Zogwort. But at present, Intolerance, our Zogwort player's got 4 resources left. Kith has got 3 resources, but Kith is still going to be able to throw out that copy of Warlock Destructor as her next action, and we could potentially see both copies of Snakebite Thug here for Zogwort, but that Snakebite Thug does finally show up to planet #1. If Kith goes to planet #1, she'll be able to kill the Snakebite Thug without too much trouble, but our current planet #5 is Iridial, the healing planet. The Snakebite Thug could deal a considerable bit of damage to Kith, and, Zogwort has got this pretty powerful shield card, so I wouldn't be tremendously surprised to see Zogwort show up at planet #1 just so he can try to win that relatively uncontested, then relocate the Snakebite Thug to planet #2. Its next turn would have initiative, and it could beat up this copy of Slith Mercenary pretty easily, and then if Zogwort manages to deploy heavily enough to planet #3, he could take the game rather quickly prior to Kith really having a strong opportunity to build up some giant financial advantage. But looks like Kith is going to decide to contest Zogwart's presence at planet #1 with a Warlock Destructor. It's a 3/4 unit. Upon the onset of the deploy phase, you've normally got to pay an additional resource just to preserve that unit, but it's going to be... if it ends up getting killed, then you're just getting an amazingly valuable unit for your invested cost. But where exactly are our warlords going to go? If Zogwort shows up at planet #1, which is looking like it's probably going to be Kith's destination, he'll be able to win that planet. I'll be just curious to see how exactly combat ensues. If Kith is able to get up to... Okay, well, would you look at this? It looks like at planet #2, we've got Intolerance purchasing control of the Slith Mercenary, and that means, depending on wherever Kith sends herself, she's not actually looking to be able to win any command right now, so it's all going to hinge on where exactly our warlords are sent, but Zogwort is currently looking to win command at planets 3 and 5, as well as planet #2. As soon as he drags this Slith mercenary over to his side of the table. And if both warlords show up at planet #1, granted Kith will have initiative at that planet, but since there's no 2-resource or 2-card bonus, Archon's Palace is definitely not going to do nearly as much as it normally would. And if Zogwort can keep this early game economic advantage, the Slith Mercenary for the cost of 2 resources is going to be absolutely fantastic value relative to paying, say, a resource and a card, which is normally around the total cost of something like 3 resources. So Kith has at this point passed, and Zogwort, I presume, will pass as well. Otherwise, we'll see the Weird Boy stick being put into play, but it looks like he's going to be holding on to that as shields, and now I'll just be very curious as to where Kith shows up. If Zogwort arrives to planet #1, note he's got 7 hit points. He'll be able to stomach an attack from that Warlock Destructor pretty easily. Zogwort plus a Snakebite Thug plus a couple of tokens are going to result in a very dead Warlock Destructor, and even if Kith shows up at that planet, she's not necessarily going to be able to do too much against that. So let's say for Packmaster Kith, if she goes to Aatrox Prime, she'll be able to kill off this copy of Slith Mercenary, she'll pick up a card and a resource, she'll be able to fire into Zogwart's HQ, but she'll only deal 1 point of damage to Zogwort. If she shows up here, she'll be able to kill off that rogue trader, deny Zogwort a couple resources, and then if she shows up at Iridial, she'll just basically get a card and a resource. But there's no really super desirable battle ability. Planet number 4, she'd be able to route, I assume, the Snakebite Thug, provided that's relocated. But Kith is going to arrive to planet number 1, and Zogwort as well is going to show up at planet number 1. So Kith does have this superiority in hand. She could kind of shut down any of these units, like if she wants to block a card and a resource for our Ork, she could trigger superiority at planet 2, but if you do that, unless you're specifically preventing your opponent from being able to trigger some sort of ability, then you're not really getting too much benefit from that effect. I apologize, my dear viewers, for having our just landscape here modified significantly thanks to those Snotlings tokens being placed to the extreme far left. But it looks like command at planet number 1 is going to be tied. Warlock Destructor and Snakebite Thug are going to match. And then for every other planet, save for 4, that is going to be Zogwort, our Ork, trumping our Dark Eldar player in regard to command. We've yet to see this Archon's Palace come into play. Normally when you're playing with Kith, it would make a lot of sense in my mind to do planet resolutions one at a time. Yep, there we go. That's going to be the Archon's Palace, cutting off that resource bonus of a total of 2. And apart from that, I suppose we'll just have to see if Kith does decide to do superiority. It's definitely a very divisive card in our community. A lot of people don't care for it just because unless you're specifically preventing your opponent from using a certain card effect, then you're really just spending a resource in a card, like at planet number 2 here, to deprive your opponent of the same. But then you don't, you kind of miss out on a draw, so it's kind of worse than parity used poorly. So we'll have to see how it ends up getting used, but for our Ork player, that's going to be 2 cards and a resource. He drew a copy of Squigify, which he may not end up playing since he only accrued 1 resource during our command phase here, but whether or not this gets used for its conventional effect, it's a fantastic 2-shield icon card. Rock Bombardment could make a big bit of difference at, say, this potential win condition planet, especially considering it is red. And note, this copy of Rock Bombardment only deals damage to enemy units if you dump that at a red planet. Sorry there, I was distracted by our chat log. But I can only imagine that our command phase is about to be completed unless we want to go back and use superiority, which seems like it would be a little bit suboptimal to do. But our players in the chat log kind of discuss the whole problem with doing 1 planet at a time, which I would generally consider to be advisable. But we're going to see battle erupt at planet number 1, and that is going to be the only battle this round. So the priority target for Kith is going to be killing off this copy of the Snakebite Thug, but the obvious problem is Kith has only got 1 resource. She's not going to be able to use this Clavex War Leader. Hopefully that doesn't just sit in her hand as a dead card, but we could see the Warlock Destructor deal damage to the Snakebite Thug. Unless our Ork player shields, then the Snakebite Thug could potentially kill itself upon resolving an attack, but we could have the Snakebite Thug damage Kith or otherwise hit the Warlock Destructor. Zogwort, the Snotlings token, an additional Snotlings token, which is going to be generated upon Zogwort attacking, could deal out quite a bit of damage and end up killing off that Warlock Destructor and that Chimera. And note that Kith only has a single 1-shield icon card in hand. So looks like we're going to press for the bloodying of Zogwort, which makes definitely a bit of sense. The earlier you can kind of bloody that Warlord, the fewer tokens you've got to deal with, just because Zogwort, especially in a hyper-aggressive match, that can result in a just mountain of units being generated, and it was wise to attack with the Chimera token first, just because each and every one of these Snotlings tokens and the Warlord itself is going to be able to potentially kill that little token there, but we'll have to see if the Snakebite Thug, I imagine, is going to pop a shot at the Warlock Destructor, otherwise it'll have to take a swing at Kith. I think if it were me, although I've frankly never played as orcs, and I've played against Dark Eldar just a handful of times, I'd be quite tempted to take a swing at the Warlock Destructor, and then probably attack with Old Zogwort, try to kill the Warlock Destructor, and then I suppose I'd just maybe consider throwing away my signature attachment as a shield, just to preserve Old Zogwort as much as possible, and then I guess at the end of a combat round end up retreating that unit, and if I have to send Zogwort to Iridial the following round, that wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world, because our orc player is definitely at no lack of just powerful army units in his hand. So opening swing is going to be a copy of the Snotlings token at that Warlock Destructor, and let's see if Kith decides to use that superiority as a shield or not. If the Warlock Destructor takes a single point of damage, it'll be just as likely to be killed by the Snakebite Thug, but I suppose Intolerance was maybe trying to bait out a multiple shield icon card, and now it's going to be Kith's opportunity to swing again. The Warlock Destructor is going to swing, and that may be 3 points of damage to Zogwort. Will we see that taken, or will we see the Weird Boy stick tossed out? Okay, so we do see the Weird Boy stick used as shields. Under normal circumstances, upon Zogwort being declared as a defender, you just generate, or I'm sorry, this is after a Snotlings token is destroyed. You put a Snotlings token into play, so it's not nearly as powerful in a sense as Zogwart's Hovel, the signature support. But I can only imagine that we want to hold on to Rock Bombardment for that victory condition planet, just because that could quickly make it just insurmountable for even a mountain of Chimera tokens to overcome Zogwort here. But Zogwort blocks off that damage. It's going to be Snakebite Thug's opportunity to attack, or Zogwort himself, and definitely things would be much more clear if our Zogwort player knew that there's only one shield icon card in our Kith player's hand. But Snakebite Thug is going to swing at that Warlock Destructor. There we see that copy of superiority, and we once again see our screen size adjusted, but no big deal. I think this is probably where it originally started off at, but that's going to be a point of damage to the Snakebite Thug, and that is going to be a grand total of 2 points of damage dealt out to that Warlock Destructor, plus the one from the Snotlings token. So I believe that should be sitting at a grand total of 3 damage there. Hopefully our players are, there we go. So it's all taken care of, and now Kith will get a chance to attack. I can only imagine it's probably going to be directed against Zogwort, and once Zogwort has the opportunity to attack himself, that is going to be potentially a dead copy of the Warlock Destructor, as well as a Snotlings token generated. So looks like we've had a couple DCs thus far this game. Our chat log is doing some very interesting things. And let us wait and see who exactly Zogwart's going to take an attack at. All right, so looks like that connection made me kind of miss our order of operations here. Packmaster Kith instead is going to be attacking the Snakebite Thug. It's not going to be killed, but we don't quite need to shield it yet. Something that's definitely going to work in Kith's favor is in whatever she decides to leave lingering at the planet. Like if she decides to keep this Chimera token positioned at Planet 1, it's going to have an opportunity to attack with initiative prior to any of the Orc units being able to respond. We do see that copy of Squigify discarded as shields, so that way the Snakebite Thug is not going to be taking any damage, and I guess, let's say Zogwort takes a swing, kills the Warlock Destructor, he's going to generate a Snotlings token. The Snotlings token is going to kill the other Chimera. I would imagine Kith is going to retreat once that happens, and then Planum is going to relocate the Snakebite Thug to our current planet number 2, and then Kith is definitely going to have to hope, for her sake, she comes across something halfway formidable to try to stand up against Zogwort, just because otherwise he can put some of these shoot-em-mobs at current planet number 2, he'll have initiative, he'll be able to attack with those, and then he can just dump out this copy of Snakebite Thug to planet number 3, and he'll be able to have that rock bombardment. But looks like Zogwort takes a swing, he does manage to kill that Warlock Destructor, and he stands to generate a fresh Snotlings token. So just trying to rack my mind for anything and everything that Kith could do. One resource is not even enough for an Archon's Terror, and I would imagine if Kith were going to do that, she'd have done it earlier to get this Snakebite Thug away from the planet, and then Zogwort would not have been able to win this battle thanks to the gradual attrition of the swinging Warlock Destructor. But there we finally see that Snotlings token take a swing. It's going to be killing off this Chimera token with Kith having no opportunity whatsoever to shield, and now the only thing we know for sure is that going into this following round, Kith is just going to have that copy of an Incubus Warrior as a economy unit, and unless Kith does pretty well in regard to command, and note Kith retreats, she's going to give up that planet. That's going to be a green and a blue planet type icon added to Zogwart's victory display. Then Kith really isn't going to have much to go up against Zogwort, and if Zogwort manages to capture Aatrox Prime, he'll be able to shoot anything that sits at planet number 3, or if somehow Kith ends up with a bunch of things in her HQ, that's definitely not going to work out too well for her either. So I think it would almost kind of be a little bit ironic in just that if Kith drew like a Chimera Den, a useless support like that, it would be basically useless at this point in the game without having been able to put a bunch of Chimera tokens into play. So I'll just be very curious to see how this pans out. This early game economic, just falling behind for Kith could definitely serve to be her downfall. And how wonderful would it be to see Zogwort end up taking this one. So looks like Intolerance needs to remember to capture his planet, but it's as simple as right click and capture. I suppose even I'd have been able to capture the planet, looks like, and now both of our players are about to end the first turn of the game. So I appreciate your patience with the disconnects. Certainly seems like our players are definitely taking their time in this hyper-competitive kind of context here. Interestingly, we see a copy of Siren Zithlex in Raid, drawn by our Packmaster Kith player, so note Raid, you can only play if your opponent has more resources than you do. It's probably not going to be difficult for that to happen, but note our Zogwort player is going to be playing first, and therefore he will whittle away resources prior to Kith's opportunity. Siren Zithlex, you could throw at, say, planet number 3, and then each enemy unit shows up exhausted. The Siren herself has got a couple command icons. I wouldn't be tremendously surprised to see Zogwort this turn show up at Farron if we see Siren Zithlex put into play at planet number 2, or he might just show up at planet number 2 and kill off the Siren so that it doesn't arrive exhausted and just go about things that way. But I guess it all is going to come down to we've got 5 resources for Zogwort. We've got a copy of Zogwart's Runt Herders, where when it takes damage, you put a Snotlings token into play, and if you've got a bunch of shields, that could be absolutely fantastic. Definitely something very nasty played out to this possible victory condition planet, planet number 3. Interestingly, we see a copy of Shoot 'em Mob put out to planet number 3, that Farron planet. That's going to be a possible 2 resource planet, but note this copy of Archon's Palace is going to be able to shut off either the card or resource bonus associated with any of these planets, and our new planet number 5 is going to be Ossus 4, that Steel 1 resource planet. So from the perspective of Packmaster Kith, I've got, say, 5 resources. I'm going to want to probably play Siren Zithlex early if I want to use a bunch of my resources, just so I can try to get my resource total lower than my opponent, but that might actually end up kind of being in vain. You might want to save Raid for shields to try to block off your opponent winning at planet number 3, because what could Kith do at planet number 1? Like, she could do Siren Zithlex and maybe just save resources for this Clavax War Leader, which would be fantastic, and probably help her to kill off our Ork. Or she could instead just save resources and dump the Clavax War Leader at planet number 1, kill the Snakebite Thug immediately. So maybe Zogwart's going to show up at planet number 1 just to ensure that the opponent isn't going to be able to capture that planet. I think a lot of it is just going to kind of come down to what is Kith looking to be able to win in regard to command? Because if Kith and that Clavax War Leader arrive at planet number 1, that's going to be very difficult indeed for Zogwart to try to come back from. So let's say... And so much of this kind of hinges upon having all the information, like waiting to see where our players put out all their army units before making a choice. But if there's one big daunting target, Kith could try to show up at Farron. Unless Zogwart goes to that planet, Kith will have initiative. She'll presumably be able to kill off this shoot-a-mob. She'll generate a Chimera token that could be subsequently relocated thanks to the Chimera Den, and then she'd be able to pick and choose an enemy unit to move around. Looks like Kith does decide to play that copy of Siren Zithlex stationed at planet number 2, so any enemy unit that ends up deployed at that planet is going to be exhausted, so Zogwart might show up to Yavvarn specifically to try to kill off Siren Zithlex. He'll attack for 1, his Snotling token that will accompany him will attack for 1, and then he'll generate another Snotling token, and it'll be able to attack for a total of 3, and unless Kith, well, even if Kith shows up, he'll have initiative, and he'll be able to potentially deal out 4 points of damage, so only being able to take one swing from Siren, I'm definitely thinking Planet 2 is probably going to be a reasonable destination for Zogwart. He also ensures that he'll get 2 resources, but that might also be a trap that Kith is trying to set, just so that she can again try to potentially bloody Zogwart. But we could also see rock bombardment used, and then that's definitely going to make things very tricky for Kith, or it could be used as shields, but I think that this is just either way going to be a very kind of harrowing game. And if Kith ends up with 4 resources, a 3-attack ambush unit could definitely drop into play and unexpectedly bloody dear old Zogwart here. But both of our players are certainly taking their time, and let us see what exactly the next action is. Alright, so it's going to be a copy of Shoot-a-Mob played out by Zogwart, and that is going to be sitting at planet number 5. So again, it looks like Zogwart is just trying to get as much income as is possible. He's fighting a bit of an uphill battle against Archon's Palace here, and just of all these different planets, I guess he's got 2 different... possibly 3 different planets, which could all stand to give him a couple resources if he sends his Warlord to planet number 2 here, but that copy of Incubus Warrior is now going to be sent to Farron, and therefore that is going to make a very desirable destination for Zogwart to show up, because he'll arrive at that planet, he'll have initiative, he'll potentially be able to kill off this copy of Incubus Warrior with his Shoot-a-Mob, or, well, I guess we could see Raid discarded as shields, and then the Incubus Warrior is going to be able to take another swing at Zogwart, but even without a Warlord, you could potentially do reasonably well. It's just kind of gonna stink if Zogwart is practically dead by the time he shows up to some critically important planets. But at present, Kith is down to 0 resources, and it's going to be up to Zogwart now to either hang on to some resources or spend them all. Zogwart's Runt Herders could be put into play at, say, planet number 2, but they'll be deployed exhausted, so I would say at present a great planet for Zogwart to show up would be planet number 3. For Kith, planet number 1 seems like it might end up being a poor life choice. Kith is only looking to gain maybe 3 resources at most, plus ideally, like, let's say a maximum of 4 for Kith, though we could also see Raid used to bump up Kith's resources to a point where she could use the Clavax War Leader, so it's possible that could drop down, kill the Snakebite Thug automatically thanks to its reaction, and then the Slith Mercenary could take a swing and end up being slaughtered by the Clavax War Leader, but it's all going to kind of come down to what Kith wants to do. Planet number 1 isn't going to be critically important for Kith to block, but she's definitely going to want to get as much mileage out of the War Leader as is possible. Kith could win our first 3 planets, and that would be victory through red material type icons. Looks like the Sanctioned Psyker, played out by Zogwort, is going to touch down on planet number 3, and that's going to be 3 command icons versus 2, and that's Zogwort potentially winning command at that planet. So I suppose it all kind of remains to be seen. Is Zogwort going to go to planet number 1 just to ensure that he's able to win at that planet, or is he going to show up at planet number 2 and try to kill off Siren Zithlex? Well, God, it's tricky. Like, planet number 1, Zogwort could basically guarantee that he can win that planet more or less. If Kith goes to planet number 1, she'll only be able to accrue 1 resource, and a total of, just the 1 resource. That's going to be nowhere near enough to do a Clavex War Leader. If Kith goes to planet number 2, that seems rather silly, because the Rogue Trader's not going to do a lot of good. Looks like Kith decides to be a little bit bold and throws away that copy of Raid just to subtract 1 resource from Intolerance, bringing him down to 0, and then Void Return is going to bounce up to 1. So if Kith goes to Farron, Kith will be able to rout a target unit, but she'll basically be giving up that first planet. She'll win 2 resources with Kith. That would be 3, and that would be Clavex War Leader at the first planet, and therefore Zogwort, it would make sense if he does show up at planet number 1. And then if Kith shows up at planet number 4, that seems kind of ill-advisable. It would just be a card and a resource, and the Sanctioned Psyker would probably not live to be able to run away. And then planet number 5, you could earn a couple resources and potentially steal a resource. That definitely wouldn't be the worst idea in the world either. So I'm predicting for Kith, I think it would probably be more beneficial to show up at planet number 3 than it would 5, but they're both reasonable destinations. And for Zogwort, I think if this was me, I'd be pretty conflicted between planet number 1 and 2. I'd also kind of want to consider planet number 3, but I'm thinking I would probably go with planet number 2, which may or may not be a mistake, but let's see what our players decide. All right, so it looks as though Intolerance is decided upon a location, and it looks as though the same can be said for Void Return. So let us see those dials, and where exactly are our Ork and Dark Eldar Warlords going to be sent? So again, I suppose I'll predict planet 1 or 2. For Zogwort, looks like Kith is going to show up at planet number 3 to try and rout one of these Ork faction units, and it looks like Zogwort is going to try and go to planet number 3 as well. So I can only imagine that he was going to try to do the rout Siren Zithlex. But for our Ork, he's going to potentially get quite a bit of income, and will we see Rock Bombardment used as shields, or will we see it played as its conventional effect? Let's see here. Planet number 1 is going to be a card and a resource, presumably for Zogwort. Note, this copy of Archon's Palace is going to be able to kind of change things. Planet number 2 is going to be a resource for Kith. That'll put her at 2. This planet, like 3 command icons here, is going to actually surpass Kith. So Kith is going to be denied the 2 resources there, and therefore Zogwort has just done one hell of a job blocking off Kith's resources, and that is going to disallow her from shielding, and it's also going to disallow Kith from being able to drop into play a Clavex War Leader. So as our players slowly but surely go through their respective command struggles, I guess let's see. This could be a card at planet number 1 for Zogwort. Looks like he comes across Snotling Attack. Very nice card here. So I suppose what we could see is it looks like there's not going to be anything Kith is going to be able to do to win at Aatrox Prime. And if we see Rock Bombardment and Snotling Attack here at planet number 2, that could easily be a victory here for Zogwort the following round. Or what we could see now is if Zogwort ends up getting just a couple resources, that could be Rock Bombardment played now, and then like Zogwart's got initiative, that could be a swing of this shoot-a-mob killing off that copy of Incubus Warrior, and then I suppose depending on whether or not that's shielded is really going to influence whether or not our Ork is going to want to use that rock bombardment for its effect or not, because if this 3/1 dies, then you're looking pretty good. And I'm thinking at this point, intolerance is just absolutely kicking the crap out of Kith. Note, we also have a copy of suppressive fire here, and now Zogwort is sitting at 3 resources. So something we could see is a suppressive fire. You exhaust a Snotlings token to knock out any individual enemy unit. We could see it used to get rid of a Chimera token, a Clavex War Leader, another Warlock Destructor, all manner of different things. And this Snotling attack, I don't actually think I've seen this event used before, quite frankly, could definitely make a monumental difference in just regard to tar pitting your opponent, with Zogwort and then Rock Bombardment. I just don't think there's going to be anything Kith can do with this planet, because slowly but surely, inexorably, our Packmaster Kith player might end up losing at that battle, just because 1 point of damage after each and every time you attack, and then your opponent doesn't suffer that same penalty, is going to be a complete nightmare. And if you can tap out units, if you can shield Zogwort, if he can keep generating Snotlings, if you can dump 4 Snotlings onto that planet, that is just absolutely horrific. And it looks as though Aatrox Prime is going to be won by Zogwort. That's going to be it's going to be a blue and a red icon added to his green and blue existing icons, and therefore that is going to set him up beautifully to win the game the following round here through blue technology icons. Aatrox Prime is now gone. The Snakebite Thug and Slith Mercenary are going to show up in Zogwart's HQ. Subsequently, like the following round, I can only imagine Zogwart's going to be showing up at Yavvarn. And now, again, Zogwart's got the initiative, so what can he do? He should be attacking with the Shoot-'em-Mob. I guess our Dark Eldar player has 2 resources, and now is the time where we'd see if there's an Archon's Terror or not. Spoiler alert, there's not, obviously. So I would take Shoot-'em-Mob, attack that Incubus Warrior, and then if I don't manage to kill it, that'll be this Sanctioned Psyker with Suppressive Fire, knocking out the Incubus Warrior, and then, let the Chimera token attack, and then I just deal with it. But that is a dead Incubus Warrior, and things are starting to look pretty grim for Packmaster Kith, so let's see the Chimera token. I can only imagine it'll probably swing at Zogwort just to try to deal out as much damage as possible to that Warlord, just get him away from that planet. Zogwart's probably not going to be showing up at Iridial the following turn unless Intolerance makes some egregious mistakes here. But I guess if this were me, it would be Chimera token attacking Zogwort. Zogwort will take an attack. He'll generate a Snotlings token. That'll be a few points of damage dealt out to, killing off probably that token, damaging Packmaster Kith, and then maybe at the end of combat, I'd retreat Zogwort from that planet if I felt like that was necessary. But you just want to deal as much damage to Kith as possible. I don't think that our Dark Eldar player is going to want to risk being bloodied. And if by some miracle you are able to bloody Kith, which really shouldn't be possible, if you can prevent her from showing up at this planet to generate another Chimera token, that would be great. Otherwise, if you deal as much damage as possible to her here, then you'll have to, worry about her less. You'll be able to kill those Chimera tokens quicker and quicker. So during the HQ phase, that'll be 4 resources for our Zogwort player. He'll get Rock Bombardment, he'll get Snotling Attack, he's got Suppressive Fire on top of that, which will work perfectly with this Rogue Trader. It's a bit of a shame that Zogwart's Runt Herders, if that ends up getting played, is going to be showing up to that planet exhausted, but it'll take damage and generate additional Snotlings tokens. It'll tar pit your opponent even further, or you could just throw out a copy of Snakebite Thug and have one big durable body sitting at that planet and just kind of deal out big chunks of damage. But I'm almost wondering if Zogwart's Runt Herders would be the better choice, just because you'll generate more bodies, your opponent will have to use more attacks, and then Rock Bombardment will end up dealing them out more damage. But the Chimera token takes a swing of 2. That's going to be old Zogwort taking 2 points of damage. He's currently sitting at 3 hit points remaining. Packmaster Kith is going to be able to attack for 2, but note, that's going to be insufficient to remove Zogwort from that planet. And, you know, I guess if we absolutely had to, we could see this Snotling attack now, but I definitely don't think that would be terribly advisable here. So what I would like to see happen is, yeah, this Snotling's token takes a swing, kills off that Chimera token, it's going to be dead. Zogwort will deal 2 points of damage to Kith. If Kith stays around, she could attempt to bloody Zogwort the following round if Zogwort as well stays, but then that'll be the Shoot-a-Mob and the 2 Snotlings tokens dealing out a total of 4 damage to Kith, and then that combined with Old Zogwort's damage is going to result in Packmaster Kith being bloodied as well, and then Farron is going to be captured by you know, Zogwort regardless because of the Shoot-a-Mob, because of the Snotlings tokens, and then if both Warlords show up bloodied at Yavvarn, if Kith has to retreat, if she can't generate a Chimera token, then things are going to end up working out favorably for Zogwort regardless. So Zogwort takes that damage. I can only imagine he's probably going to stick around at that planet and, you know, just let himself get bloodied in exchange for Packmaster Kith getting bloodied, although he doesn't know what exactly his opponent has in regard to shields. So if there is some, like, shield card that Kith is really holding on to for that last moment just to squeeze out a bloodying and then do some kind of last-minute defense, we'll have to see how that goes. But we're going to come to the end of a combat round. Is Packmaster Kith going to retreat or not? I suppose I forgot that Farron, okay, Packmaster Kith retreats. Farron is going to be activated. That's going to be Siren Zithlex being banished from this planet, and I forgot that Farron's going to kick her away, so in that case, why not throw Snakebite Thug out to our soon-to-be planet number 1, just because that way it's going to be able to not attack with initiative, but it'll be able to attack for 3, and that's going to be potentially much more effective than Zogwart's Runt Herders. Kith has already got 2 points of damage, so let her show up and have initiative, and if she gets exhausted, she could easily get bloodied. Again, our screen gets readjusted there. A little bit of a pet peeve of mine, but no big deal. Suppressive Fire is going to be absolutely fantastic during this presumable final round of combat, and as we're about to come to our, I again assume, final HQ phase here, let us hope for Packmaster Kith's sake that she gets something good. Another copy of Clavax Warleader isn't exactly what Kith was probably hoping to see. We've got a copy of Rogue Trader and 6 resources, but what is Kith going to do? Kith is currently not winning command on any individual planet. The Sanctioned Psyker is going to shut off that Rogue Trader. Kith has to show up at planet number 1, otherwise she's throwing away the game. What's the best case scenario? You put a Rogue Trader on this planet here as your opening deploy action, and then you might have your AM allied opponent throw, you know, a couple command icons at that planet, or we could see a Snakebite Thug put at planet number 5 just so you can kind of block off Kith. But I guess it's all kind of going to come down to Packmaster Kith. Her first and probably only action is going to be a copy of a Rogue Trader. I guess something we could see would be a Clavax Warleader being played conventionally at probably planet number 1 and not using its ambush reaction, but just having it sitting there as a body if you could guarantee that you'll be able to get enough resources for a second copy of Clavax Warleader, but that's really not going to be an option, and it looks to me like there's no way that Packmaster Kith is going to be able to salvage this. I don't know if I agree with that move, Packmaster Kith, so I guess the absolute best case scenario is Kith shows up at Iridial, and then, okay, yeah, so Kith looks like she pulls that Rogue Trader back, says hang on. You know, I don't know if your hands have technically left hold of the Rogue Trader. I definitely think that would be a poor life choice, putting it at that planet, because if you had Kith show up here, you'd get 2 resources and you'd get a card, but you'd not have enough for both of your copies of Clavax Warleader, so you'd have a card that just wasn't doing a whole hell of a lot of good. So now we see that Rogue Trader appropriately being played out to planet number 5. And now, will we see a 1 command icon unit thrown to this planet? Kind of the trick here is, you know, Intolerance has no idea what Packmaster Kith has in hand. I would imagine you would assume it's something more than just a single command icon unit. And I think if it were me, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, I would just start dumping out, you know, combat units positioned here at planet number 1. I'd probably do the, like, let's say, Kith is presumably going to be showing up at planet number 1, otherwise that would be pretty silly. But planet number 2, let's say that gets shut off. You'd be getting a card and 2 resources, so if you're sitting at 9 resources, let's cut out 4 for the Snotling Attack Rock Bombardment combo. That's still 5 left, so Zogwart's Runt Herders and Snakebite Thug at planet number 1 seems pretty acceptable to me. Or you could be a little bit risky, but it all comes down to, kind of careful combat math. I guess you start with that Snakebite Thug, and then if you see Packmaster Kith pass, which Kith did, then, why not just go nuts? And let's see another copy of Zogwart's Runt Herders out to planet number 1, unless our Zogwort players just really kind of counting on maybe drawing an additional copy of Rock Bombardment, which would be, instant game over for Kith. But Kith is going to show up at planet number 1. We could see Suppressive Fire used so that the Rogue Trader knocks out that copy of a Chimera token. Siren Zithlex could be killed off by this Snakebite Thug. Kith could take a swing at something, but there's going to be 2 copies of the Snakebite Thug. I guess the Slith Mercenary could end up changing hands, but apart from that, I'm not really sure what exactly Kith is going to be able to do. And with that Snotling Attack, that's going to be 4 1/1 units, all attacking. Rock Bombardment's going to deal out a monumental, albeit incremental, amount of damage to each of these Dark Eldar units. And there we see that copy of Zogwart's Runt Herders being put out to planet number 1, and what, if anything, can... Okay... I guess I forgot that Snotling Attack was a deploy action, but there it is. That's going to be that deploy action, putting 4 tokens at planet number 1. And let's see if we actually get the GG called out by Packmaster Kith or not. If she, he has the audacity and courageousness, the strength of heart to see this through to the end. Packmaster Kith calls out, "This is going well." But in all fairness, sometimes if you pick the tier 1 meta-breaking warlord, things don't always exactly go as planned. And as called out by Intolerance, the Snots have arrived. So Zogwort shows up to planet number 1. That's going to be 5 Snotlings tokens. As soon as the Runt Herders take damage, that'll be an additional Snotlings token. As soon as Zogwort attacks, that's going to be an additional Snotlings token. Who cares if he ends up getting bloodied? I would definitely encourage you to attack with Zogwort first. Zogwort shows up at planet number 1. That's going to be a couple of copies of Snakebite Thugs, the Slith Mercenary, which may betray Intolerance. Note that big resource discrepancy, but what exactly is Packmaster Kith going to get in regard to resources? It's going to be 2 resources and a card, and that means Kith is going to have enough for a Clavex War Leader and to purchase control of an exhausted copy of a Slith Mercenary, and I cannot see this going at all well for Packmaster Kith. So let's say Archon's Palace is going to end up, shutting off, what is it going to be, this first planet, so a couple of resources cut down. It's going to be 2 resources for Zogwort. This is going to be a card for Zogwort, another couple of resources for Zogwort. So Suppressive Fire could knock out the Chimera. Rock Bombardment could just as easily end up killing all this stuff. It's, going to permanently enchant this planet, I guess, with an effect where only the opposing units end up taking damage. So that's going to be incredibly nasty. And things are definitely not looking great for Kith. But I guess what exactly is this card going to be that our Orc player will draw? I think we're still in the process of figuring out what we're going to get. A copy of Archon's Terror really wouldn't even be that useful for Packmaster Kith right now. Maybe the best case scenario would be like the Agonizer of Bren, just as a 3 shield value card, but there's so many individual units all attacking you. Pact of the Homunculi is definitely not going to make all the difference that Kith needs in this case, where it's a 1 shield icon card. So I guess at this point, it's just going to be Kith's initiative. Are we going to move on to combat? Okay, so Intolerance asks, is there going to be a superiority? Can I take? And looks like Kith indicates to take the resources and cards that Zogwort has coming. Holy God, that is going to be a copy of Battlecry, and wow, what a time to see this event. And I was talking about using rock bombardment. So, Zogwart's got 4 resources. He's going to be able to throw out Battlecry. That means each of these 5 Snotlings tokens is going to be able to attack for 3. The Snakebite Thug is going to be able to attack for 5. And even though this was a very long, kind of interesting match, I definitely hope you enjoyed at least some aspects of it, my dear viewers. And it looks like it's time for Packmaster Kith to get absolutely demolished by this orcish onslaught. So best case scenario for Kith is Suppressive Fire exhausts our Chimera token, Packmaster Kith attacks something, and then she ends up being immediately just destroyed, evicted from that planet. A Clavex Warleader is going to be able to drop into play, destroy this copy of Snakebite Thug, presumably kill something, and then any other attacking orc is going to be able to kill off that copy of Clavex Warleader. So I'm not sure what exactly the holdup is, but we're supposed to be moving into combat at any moment now. Again, Packmaster Kith calls out that it's not looking terribly good. Latency has definitely been a bit of an issue during this match, so I wonder if we're about to experience our 4th disconnect, but let us see how combat is resolved. All right, so it looks like we're about to encounter combat. So Yvarn has been selected, and I guess right away voidreturn uses his Chimera to attack, and okay. So that's going to be a copy of Rock Bombardment discarded as shields, and I'm kind of surprised. Well, I guess Suppressive Fire was probably saved for you know, obviously there's going to be a Clavex Warleader. When you're a Packmaster Kith player and you've got a total of 7 resources, I can only imagine that you're going to have Clavex Warleader dropping out, and I can only imagine that's why Intolerance here is calling out for actions, just because when the Clavex does drop down, you want to be able to use Suppressive Fire, you know, use your Rogue Trader in order to remove whatever, the 3/3 that gets ambushed into play. This Snakebite Thug is presumably going to end up getting killed after this Chimera has attacked, but the Warleader, it can drop in, kill the Snakebite Thug, it could maybe attack, but then it's going to get exhausted prior to being able to do so. Kith is going to take a swing, and then it's just going to be this veritable green tide with the assistance of Battlecry just absolutely rolling over and crushing Packmaster Kith, but definitely a little bit of slow play going on. And what is Kith going to do? Any actions for Kith? Intolerance calls for actions. Okay, so Voidreturn indicates no actions whatsoever, and there is no time like the present to see Battlecry. I would imagine that is probably going to prompt the play of a Clavex Warleader. Otherwise, it's going to be after Packmaster Kith attacks. It doesn't really matter too tremendously much because of this Suppressive Fire here, but I suppose if it were me, I would wait until after Kith attacks just to get as much surprise as possible. Battlecry is going to be elicited, and therefore I can only... Okay, so that is indeed going to be the GG. So good game, well played by both of our players. Here's how it easily could have resolved. Clavex Warleader equates to a dead Snakebite Thug, but it would have been exhausted as soon as Battlecry was played. There's, you know, nothing that Kith would have been able to do. Zogwort would have been able to attack for 3, and he'd have generated a token that would have unfortunately not benefited from Battlecry, but each of these tokens could have attacked for 3. The Runt Herders could have attacked for 3, the Snakebite Thug could have attacked for 5, and that would have easily been a dead Siren Zithlex, a dead Packmaster Kith, a dead Chimera token, and also a dead Clavex Warleader. So absolutely nothing that Packmaster Kith could have done, but all the same, good game, well played by Intolerance, and of course, thank you to Voidreturn as well for allowing me the opportunity to present you dear viewers with another featured match from the Black Crusade. So, hopefully you enjoyed this match. I very much appreciate your patience with the disconnects, with the screen readjustment, and a little bit of slowish play on part of our players. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, as ever, you're always encouraged to share this content, because the more engagement this channel receives, the more individuals end up being being exposed to Conquest, they might give this game a try, enjoy what they experience, join our community, and of course, all together we continue to send the message to Fantasy Flight Games, telling them to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Facebook or on Twitter, and if you ever feel so inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant, I would be absolutely honored, humbled, and deeply appreciative were you to make a donation or contribution to my Patreon, as even $1 or $2 on a strictly monthly basis nevertheless does wonders in helping me to recoup my file hosting and operating expenses, and further, it allows me to reinvest in and attempt to improve the quality of this channel. But, as always, thank you once again for watching, and be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.